The Promise by Tracy Chapman. If you wait for me, then I'll come for you. Although I've traveled far, I always hold a place for you in my heart. If you think of me, if you miss me once in a while, then I'll return to you. I'll return and fill that space in your heart. Remembering your touch, your kiss, your warm embrace, I'll find my way back to you. If you'll be wait, if you dream of me, like I dream of you, in a place that are warm and dark, in a place where I can feel the beating of your heart, remembering your touch, your kiss, your warm embrace, I'll find my way back to you. If you'll be waiting, I've longed for you, and I have desired to see your face, your smile, to be with you whenever you are. Remembering your touch, your kiss, your warm embrace, I'll find my way back to you. Please see you will be waiting. Together again. It would feel so good being in your arms, where all my journeys end. If you can make a promise, it's one that you can keep. I would come for you. If you wait for me, and see you are heard, a place for me in your heart, a place for me in your heart. How to design language tests for citizenship and how not to. Perfect Swedish is overrated, but comprehensible Swedish is deeply underrated, said URF Kristersson, the leader of Sweden's center-right moderate party, which supports a language requirements to become a Swedish citizen. The left has become round too. The left has come around too. The Social Democrats-led government plans to introduce a language test. Sweden would thereby leave the small club of European countries that do not make passing such a test a condition of naturalization. To learn the language of the country you live in is the key to a full time there, but many experts in language policy oppose testing for citizenship because they suspect a less compassionate motive in some who promise them becoming a Danish citizen is something one has to become worthy of, said Lena Stoltenberg in 2015 when she was the Immigration and Integration Minister. In Denmark's center-right government, implying that the unworthy had been slipping through. Her thinly camouflaged goal was not to improve immigrants' Danish, but to naturalize fewer of them. How to design language tests for citizenship and how not to. Perfect Swedish is overrated, but comprehensible Swedish is deeply underrated. See URF Kristersson, the leaders of Sweden's center-right moderate party, which supports a language requirements to become a Swedish citizen. The left has come round, too. The Social Democrats-led government plans to introduce a language test. Sweden would thereby leave the small club of European countries that do not make passing such a test a condition of naturalization. To learn the language of the country you live in is the key to a full life there. But many experts in language policy oppose testing for citizenship because they suspect a less compassionate motive in some who propose them. Becoming a Danish citizen is something one has to become worthy of, said Lena Stolberg in 2015 when she was the Immigration and Integration Minister in Denmark's center-right government, implying that the unworthy had been sleeping through. Her thinly camouflaged goal was not to improve immigrants' Danish, but to naturalize fewer of them. Learning the Lesson, Not the Example by Derek Sealworth. Learning how to read metaphorical was a major turning point in my life. Metaphorically. Learning how to read metaphorically was a major turning point in my life. When I was 19, attending Berklee College of Music, I had no interest in anything but music. Then a teacher made us read the book Positioning, which is a straight-up business book. I thought, business, yuck. I'm at music school, not business school. I just want to be a musician, not some corporate suit. Then he showed us how we could apply that book's business lessons to our music. Even though the book makes no mention of music, he told us to translate the examples to whatever we are doing. In other words, don't focus on the example itself. Use it as a metaphor and apply the lesson to my situation. It sounds obvious now, but I'd never looked at it that way before. I realized I could advance my music career by reading books that make no mention of music. In fact, I'd have to a competitive advantage by doing so, since most musicians won't. Now here I am, 20 years later. I write little articles to share the lessons I've learned. But in the comments, I notice that people sometimes focus on my random examples instead of on the greater lessons. Nobody else knows your exact situation. So learn to see past the example, focus on the lesson, and apply it to your own life. Think in metaphors. I got the COVID-19 vaccine and I feel guilty by Arjun Sharma. A pinch, a jab, and a push. A pinch, a jab, and a push. Just like that, it was over. When I received my first dose of the coronavirus vaccine, there were no cameras or reporters. It came without any bit of the pomp and ceremony that accompanied the early shots of politicians I saw on television or read about in news. After signing a stack of papers and flashing my hospital ID, I was led into an chamber, where a security guard peered at me through a small circular window. From there he got an key, and I was chauffeured to the slightly larger room with a single clerk who sat behind the desk. She asked for those papers, my health card, and for me to lower my mask to confirm my identity. I was momentarily stunned. I hadn't willfully shown my face to a stranger since I was in New York City last March. I had this weird feeling of being naked. She was unfazed. At a small cubicle, cubicle. At a small cubicle, I wanted the nurse's hands moved with deft skill. The ball of cotton and the bandage were laid out. A swab was soaked with alcohol and applied to my shoulder, the wetness quickly disappearing into a cool vapor, lastly into a needle. He drew up a fraction of a milliliter of clear, iridescent liquid, flicking the bubble of air from its point. Loneliness Skills. A Middle-Aged Dad Seeks Friendship by A.J. Jacobs. In one sense, the journalist Billy Baker has undertaken a self-defeating task to kill his loneliness by writing a book. He could have made a documentary, seems more social, but instead he's chosen one of the loneliness professions, involving endless days of solitary confinement in a room with your keyboard and self-doubt to try to reconnect with friends. Still, Baker managed to pull it off, mostly. When not typing at his desk alone, he speaks to psychologists, goes on meal boarding trips, and tries to embrace his vulnerable side. The result is we need to hang out, an entertaining mix of social science, memorial, and humor, as if a Daniel Goldman book were filtered through the lens of Will Ferrell. Baker, a middle-aged dad and Boston Globe writer, starts with thesis that we've been in the midst of a loneliness crisis even before COVID. In the 21st century, he writes, loneliness has become an epidemic. He cites a 2019 survey that found 61% of Americans are officially lonely, according to the gold standard UCLA loneliness scale. As the political scientist and socialist Robert Putnam put it 20 years ago, we are increasingly bowling alone. This is not a trivial problem. Loneliness skills, Baker writers, is a public health trait linked to short lifespans, heart disease, obesity, and Alzheimer's. Relaxing with Chaos by Lou Babata. There's a big part of us that doesn't like chaos. We want order and simplicity and feeling like we are on top of things and doing things the right way. And so when things feel chaotic, we scramble for some kind of stability. When someone is upset with us, we might not like the feeling of being judged and the uncertainty about how people see us, and so we might lash out at them or spin around a story for days about how terrible that person is. When plans don't go how we hoped they would, we feel like we are on steady ground, and we start citizen ourselves of feeling like we are doing things wrong and things are out of control. And it might bring a lot of stress in our lives. Do you relate to any of these examples? In fact, the uncertainty of our chaotic lives in perhaps the main cause of our anxiety, stress, frustration, self-doubt, fear, procrastination, and more. We know when we are feeling this chaos, when we are reaching for a new tool, system, method, tactic, plan, expert, book on a topic, or our phones. There is nothing wrong with any of these things. It's just how we normally respond to chaos. But if we could relax in the middle of that chaos, it could do so much for us. We would be okay with the feeling of overwhelm and not need to panic or feel bad. We would simply take the next step. We could focus on one thing at a time, and much, much more. The training is to learn to relax with chaos, and from that place, decide on the next simple step. Paradoxical Commandments of Leadership by Kent M. Keith. People are illogical, unreasonable, and self-centered. Love them anyway. If you do good, people accuse you of selfish, ulterior motives. Do good anyway. If you are successful, you win false friends and true enemies. Succeed anyway. The good you do today will be forgotten tomorrow. Do good anyway. Honesty and frankness make you vulnerable. Be honest and frank anyway. The biggest man with the biggest ideas can be shot down by the smallest man with the smallest minds. Think big anyway. People favorite underdogs, but follow only top dogs. Fight for a few underdogs anyway. What you spend years building may be destroyed overnight. Build anyway. People really need help but may attack you. If you do help them anyway. Give the world the best you have and you will get kicked in the teeth. Give the world the best you have anyway. Stand a Little Rain by Nitty Gritty Dirty Band. A dark cold is coming, headed straight for your heart. Might get just a little bit crazy, baby. Might try to tear us apart. When the storm blows over, only the strong love remains. If we are ever gonna see a rainbow, we have to stand a little rain. Everybody wants love to be easy, but it's never been that way. Each love starts out with blue skies. Sometimes those blue skies turn gray. When the storm blows over, only the true love remains. If we are ever gonna see a rainbow, we all will have to stand a little rain. Thunders roars and the lightning strikes. Hold on, duckling, it's gonna be alright. 'Cause when the storm blows over, I swear my love will remain. If we are ever gonna see a rainbow, we all have to stand a little rain. If we are ever gonna see a rainbow, we all have to stand a little rain. Why self-compassion, not self-esteem, leads to success. Talking about being kind to yourself may sound like something from a nursery classroom, but even cynics would care about self-compassion, especially if they want to be resilient. Why self-compassion, not self-esteem, leads to success. Talking about being kind to yourself may sound like something from a nurse classroom, but even cynics should care about self-compassion, especially if they want to be resilient. By David Robertson. Think back to the last time you failed or made an important mistake. Do you still blush with shame and scold yourself for having been so stupid or selfish? Do you tend to feel alone in that failures, as if you were the only person to have erred? Or do you accept that error is a part of being human and try to talk to yourself with care and tenderness? For many people, the most harshly judgmental responses are the most natural. Indeed, we may even take pride in being hard on ourselves as a sign of our ambition and resolution to be our best possible self. But a wealth of research shows that self-criticism often backfires badly. Besides increasing our unhappiness and stress levels, it can increase procrastination and makes us even less able to achieve our goals in the future. Instead of chastising ourselves, we should practice self-compassion, greater forgiveness of our mistakes, and deliberate effort to take care of ourselves throughout times of disappointment or embarrassment. Most of us have a good friend in our lives who is kind of unconditionally supportive, says Kristen Neff, an associate professor of educational psychology at the University of Texas at Austin, who has pioneered this research. Self-compassion is learning to be that same warm, supportive friend to yourself. Driven by Curiosity by Steve Pavlina. People often ask me what drives me. While there can be many motivations for taking action, I'd say that one of my biggest drivers is curiosity. I love to learn, and I found it most valuable to learn through Handler's direct experience. In my early years of exploring personal development, I did not a combination of reading books and doing experiments on my own. I almost always found direct experimentation to be a better investment. Books were mostly good for stimulating further experimentation. It was rare that I found good ideas from books that I could apply as is. Most ideas I pick up from books were misaligned, and they often led me astray for a while. I made the mistake of trusting other authors too much and giving them too much credibility. I mistook their confidence as a reason to presume that their ideas were flawless. Many of my best advancements and cherished experience started with a spark of curiosity. Then I added fuel to that spark by investing in exploration. I went vegan 24 years ago because of curiosity. I'm eating raw this year because of curiosity. I became an entrepreneur after college because I was curious about it. I moved to Las Vegas because of curiosity.